introduction. My name is Jamie Viebach, as she said, and I am the Will County Director with the Conservation Foundation. I'm also the host of our Conservation Online webinar series. Every Wednesday at 1 p.m. we host a different webinar. So please check out our website or our Facebook page for more information on that. So let's get into it. Composting 101. That's also my contact information there. Email's the best way to get a hold of me. If you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to drop me an email. All right, first a little bit about the Conservation Foundation. We are a dedicated nonprofit, and our focus is improving the health of our communities. So, you know, we sound like a bunch of tree huggers, you know, we save land, we save water, that's our big tagline. But really, we're doing it not only for the birds and the bunnies, but also for the people as well. Having healthy land and healthy water is good for us as well. So we are an accredited land trust. It's kind of a big deal. It means that there's a national organization that oversees all land trusts. And this shows that we are basically doing things the right way. So we hope to be around for a very long time. All right, and you can see some of the areas that we work in here. The 4 counties that we mostly focus on are Kane, Kendall, DuPage, and Will counties. Every little dot on that map is a piece of land that we've helped to protect. That doesn't mean we own all that land. A lot of times we'll help forest preserves, park districts, other agencies, to preserve and protect land that they own as well. So there's nearly 200 parcels there, 43 conservation easements, and it's across 7 counties. Even though we focus on 4 main counties, we do go outside that area too when there is an opportunity to help somebody. All right, so what is composting? Composting is the act of taking organic material, and by this organic, you know, we mean anything that comes from the earth. So plants, plant matter, taking all of that and turning it back into rich, healthy soil again. Why should we bother doing this? Well, first off, organic waste makes up between 1/4 and half of the average household waste here in the United States. So composting could actually reduce the amount of garbage that your household produces by a considerable amount. My household, we recycle, we compost, and our family of 3 has about 1 bag of trash going out to the curb every week. So it's really a good way to help limit what you're getting rid of. When all that trash goes to the landfill, because it is undergoing the decomposition process without oxygen in most cases, it produces a lot of methane. Methane is one of those pesky greenhouse gases that helps to contribute to climate change. So by composting at home, you're incorporating oxygen in that as it's breaking down, which means it's producing other things besides methane that are a little bit more environmentally friendly. At the end of our composting process, we have great, healthy compost that goes in to help make healthy soil. And then when you have that healthy soil, you can use fewer chemical fertilizers. You don't have to spend your money on Miracle-Gro and all those other things to try and add back to the soil the things that we take out. So using compost in your gardens, in your flower beds, even in your houseplants can help to make them healthier very inexpensively. So it definitely saves you money as well. So there's a lot of different types of composters that you can use at home. Everything from, if you look down there in the bottom right, just a pile. Now, of course, this is probably going to be the one that's going to irritate your neighbors the most, but it's basically just a big pile of compost. So you throw all of your organic waste in there and just let it break down over time. There's a few downsides to that, obviously. It's kind of an eyesore. It might attract animals like raccoons, mice, even squirrels, chipmunks, things like that. And again, it's not terribly attractive. So most people prefer to keep their compost contained in something. So you can go as fancy as the plastic containers there. Those containers are actually taken right off of our website. The Conservation Foundation partners with Upcycle Products out of Morris to sell rain barrels. And in addition to the rain barrels, they also sell composters, both the tumbling and the stationary composters. The difference between those, the stationary composters don't get mixed up. So you just kind of throw everything on top and you can take it out of the bottom. With a tumbling composter, you get to mix it up a little bit more. And the more you mix your compost, the faster it's going to break down. So having a tumbling composter like that helps it to work a little bit faster. The downside is you can't fill it very full because it gets very heavy very quickly. So it's the tumbling composters, one might be enough for like a single person. But if you've got more people in your family, you might want to do something a little bit more than that. In the top middle, you see one that was made out of pallets. Kind of a cool way to do it. They just rigged it up with those pallets, holds them together with a kind of a gate that they can open. You throw all your stuff in the top. It keeps it a little more contained. But also because you can open the side, you can get a pitchfork or a shovel or something in there to turn it frequently. Kind of the same, the wire mesh one on the bottom middle. Again, that's another one. It kind of helps to keep everything contained. Not as easy to mix things up when you're working with that though. Now the 3-bin one at the very top right, that's a really fancy type one, but it's probably the easiest one to use out of all of them. It's a little bit bigger, but what you do is, the idea here is you start on the left and you throw all of your compost into the left-hand side. Once that side gets full or almost full, you turn it into the middle. So you just get a shovel, a pitchfork, whatever, and you start shoveling everything over into that middle section. And then you start filling the left one again. Now, when that left one gets full again, you go back to your middle one, you turn it into the far right one. And you just keep moving it down the line like that till when you get to that far right one, by the time your far left one is full again, the far right one should be just about done. So that's kind of the idea behind that system, is everything's breaking down, you're mixing it up periodically, so getting some oxygen back in there, helping everything work better. So that's probably the most efficient out of all of these, but any of these types of composters will work. So what can go into a home compost? Now, notice I'm saying home compost here. There's also something called an industrial composter, which if you're in a community that has curbside composting, they're rare, but possibly becoming a little more common, hopefully, the more people push for it. Industrial composters, they cook a little bit hotter than a home compost. They can accept a lot more things. A lot of the you'll see like corn plasticware that says it can be composted. It doesn't mean in your home composter. It can be composted in an industrial composter. So a little bit of a difference there, just so you know. The corn plastics, things like that, really don't go in your home composter. They will take forever to break down. So what can go in your home compost? Basically, the question you have to ask yourself is, has it ever in this item's entire life history been a plant? If the answer is yes, it can probably go in your compost. So everything from those fruit and vegetable scraps, your apple cores, banana peels, that funky little grape at the end that looks kind of weird and you just really don't want to eat it, the inside of your peppers, the skin off your garlic, all of that kind of stuff, perfect. Put it all in your compost. Shredded paper. Paper comes from trees. So shredded paper is a great thing to put in your home compost, and we'll get into why that is in just a minute. Any of your yard waste, leaves, any plant trimmings, things like that. You get a bouquet of flowers and it starts to die off, all goes into your home composter. Even things like cereal, they say cotton, like cotton clothing and stuff can go in there. I think that might take a while to really break down. That might be another one of those for the industrial composters, but basically, if it's ever been a plant, it can go in your home compost. If it came from an animal, you don't want to put it in there. So meats, dairies, cheeses, oils, fats, fish, all that kind of stuff. You want to keep that out of your compost. It can impact the bacteria that are working away, breaking all your stuff down. It can attract nuisance animals, again, like raccoons and mice and things. It can really be an attractant of that, and it can really start to smell bad. Good compost should not smell bad, but when you get a lot of fats and things like that in there, it can really make things turn. So if it came from an animal, it needs to go in the trash. There are a few exceptions, however. First are eggshells. Eggshells are actually really great for your compost. After you've cracked the egg and you're making your omelet, rinse out that shell, crush it up really good, and put it in your compost. Adds a great source of calcium into your compost, which is something that plants need. The edges of the eggshell can also help to cut the skins of soft-bodied insects that like to be in your garden. So things that you don't want eating away at the roots of your carrots or your tomato plants or whatever. Having crushed up eggshells in there is a natural way of keeping insects out of your garden. Hair and fingernail clippings, gross as it sounds, they can all go in there too. They're fine, as can dog hair and other pet hair as you brush it out, as long as your pet is not being treated for fleas and ticks. That stuff gets into the coat, and it can be, those chemicals can persist, and then they can have an impact potentially on our native insects and the things like that we really want to encourage. So if you treat them for fleas and ticks, like those little drops that go on the coat or whatever, keep that hair out of your compost. So when we're talking about what to put into our compost, we want to talk about mixes of greens and browns. You'll hear that terminology a lot, greens and browns. And greens are fresh things that are green. So things are going to have a lot of water content to them. So your fruit and vegetable scraps, your grass clippings, breads, coffee grounds, all that stuff, that's all considered greens. Your browns are going to be things that you would kind of traditionally think of as being brown: leaves, twigs, cardboard, paper, all of that. So you got to have a mix of greens and browns in there, and the amounts are about 60-40. So the browns will soak up some of the excess water. They also provide a little bit of structure for all the little organisms that are working on breaking things down. And so when you mix those things together, that's what's going to give you your best mix for proper composting. And again, remember, don't add dairy, meat, bones, oils, all that kind of stuff. Oh, also you don't want to add, you don't want to put any pet waste in there, because just in case there are any worms or any diseases, things like that, we don't want to pass those on. And again, also it can attract animals like raccoons and things. So we definitely don't want to put pet waste in there. Don't scoop the litter box in there, that kind of thing. So how does composting work? Well, we start at the very top there. You can see with your organic waste. So the newspaper, the leaves, the fruits and vegetables, all that stuff starts at the top. We add to that a little bit of soil, so the microorganisms that are already present in the soil, along with some water, some air that we get when we mix things up. All that stuff comes together. It gives off carbon dioxide and heat. Your compost will actually heat up quite a bit. And that's a good thing, because as we heat up that compost, if there's seeds that are left in there, if your compost heats up enough, it can actually kill off those seeds, which if you've ever composted homegrown tomatoes or things like that, you get those little seedlings popping up everywhere. So having your compost get nice and hot is actually a really good thing. And at the end of the day, then you come out with your finished compost. It's done when it smells earthy. It shouldn't smell like banana peels or smell like, it shouldn't really smell like anything. It should just kind of smell like dirt. It should have a really dry, crumbly appearance. You shouldn't be able to see individual bits of food and things in there. And again, because everything is breaking down, you're going to see that volume go down anywhere from 50 to 75%, depending on what you put in there. If you've got, like, say, a lot of leaves and things in there, it'll go down even further. And after you turn it, if you want to get really fancy and get a compost thermometer, it's basically a thermometer on like a long pin that you just sort of stick in there. After you turn it, usually if it's not done yet, the temperature will go back up again as it starts breaking things down. When it's done, it's going to stay relatively cool. So what problems might you encounter when you are composting? First of all, it might be too wet. And symptoms of that would be if you see a lot of flies or insect activity around it. Now you're going to see some because it's rotten food. But if you see a lot, if it smells bad, if it looks kind of slimy, it's definitely too wet. And now it's time to add some more browns, some more of that drier stuff, the dead leaves, some paper. That's where that shredded paper comes in. Shredded paper is great. It breaks down really, really fast. And if you have, if you have a little paper shredder at home that you put all your junk mail and stuff in, it's perfect. I would love to see somebody try and steal my identity after it's been through the compost. So breaks down super, super fast. You can also turn it and try to add a little more air to it. And that will help as well to dry it out. On the other hand, if it's too dry, your decomposition process is going to kind of stop. So the solution to that obviously is just add some water, or you could add some more greens to it. You know, put more kitchen scraps in there, have a great big salad for dinner, and all of the carrot shavings and all of that can go in there. So I have also, if my compost got too dry, I've just taken the garden hose and just run the garden hose over it a little bit, stir it up, and you're back in business again. One other note here, a little exception, is citrus. Adding too much citrus to your outdoor compost can make it a little bit too acidic. If it gets too acidic, now it's really going to start to smell bad. And it can unfortunately kill off some of those really good microorganisms that we want in there that are breaking everything down. So in the winter, you know, everybody gets those cuties. I know my household goes through probably 5 a day. Make sure you're just not putting a whole lot of citrus in your compost bin. So if that does happen, if it does start to smell bad and it's not that it's too wet, stop putting as much citrus in there or acidic foods. And then you can add lime or wood ash. So, you know, have a little campfire and throw the ashes in there. That'll help to counterbalance the acid that's in there. You could also throw in a handful of crushed up Tums. Tums are basically a base material. That's why it fixes your heartburn if you got too much acid going on in your stomach. It's that nice chemical reaction. Acid mixed with a base becomes water. So you could also throw some of that in there too. All right, I also wanted to talk about vermicomposting because I think vermicomposting is super cool. Vermicomposting is composting with worms. So also sometimes called a worm bin. So you can go as fancy as the setup there on the left. That's a series of trays that fit together, and each tray has holes in the bottom that the worms can move up and down through them. And so just like sort of with that other compost bin, you start with one tray and you put your worms in there, you put your shredded paper in there, you put your food in there, the worms work away. And once it gets kind of full, you set the next bin on top and then you start feeding that bin. And the worms sort of migrate up through that system. And by the time you fill that top bin, the bottom one is done already. What I like about vermicomposting is it actually goes a lot faster than outdoor regular normal composting. What would take out in a normal compost bin maybe a month or two to break down is gone in two weeks maybe. So it works very, very fast. And you can kind of see how the setup goes. Like I said, there's that fancy setup that you can buy there on the left. I have a stackable bin system kind of like that. I don't have the little thermometers, but I have a stackable system like that. But I've also done it where you just take some Rubbermaid containers, drill holes in the side for air, have another one that can sit on top so that they can move up and down. Drill holes in the bottom for that one too, and do it that way. So you can do it as nice or as inexpensively as you like. Really important to make sure you have lots of shredded paper though. Worms love shredded paper, and it creates a really nice structure for your bin so that the worms can move around through there. But they can break down kitchen scraps so fast. And what's really cool is you don't have to worry about adding more. Like if you've got a lot of scraps coming up, the worms will actually reproduce to meet your demand or die back if you don't have as much food to feed them. So it's really cool. They kind of manage their own numbers. So, and you can just buy a pound of worms. Speaking of which, it's important to get the right kind of worms when you're vermicomposting. You want red wigglers, not night crawlers. Night crawlers are those big, fat, thick ones that you buy for fishing. You can get red wigglers, but because they're a little bit smaller, a little bit skinnier, they're a little bit less popular for fishing. But you still can. My son is obsessed with fishing right now, and if he wants to go fishing, all he's got to do is go out to our vermicompost, grab a little handful out of there, and he's got enough bait to last him for the day. So the difference between these night crawlers live a little bit deeper in the soil. So they don't do as good a job. They're not as efficient at breaking things down as the red wigglers that tend to live in the leaf litter. So they live right at the surface in the leaf litter, and they are just machines at breaking stuff down. So kind of the difference between two different types of worms there for vermicomposting. Again, some common problems you might have. If you have flies, you should not have flies, okay? Vermicompost, you should be able to have it under the sink and nobody would know. So it does not, it's a common misconception that they attract bugs. They really don't. Unless it's too wet or you have too much food in there, then you might start to see some flies. The solution to that, add more paper, make sure the food is covered by paper because the flies want to lay on exposed food. So if you cover all the food with paper, they'll have nowhere to go. So a little bit of time, if you've got too much food in there, gives the worms time to break stuff down. And then you maybe just don't feed it for a little while. So while they're working on that. If it smells bad, again, there should be almost no odor to your worm bin. If it smells bad, it's too wet, or again, you have too much food in there. So cut back on feeding, add more paper, open the lid maybe. Most of them also have a drain on them. It'll look like a little spigot. You want to keep that open all the time so that any excess moisture can drain out of there. They call that worm tea. That tea is excellent fertilizer for houseplants. So you mix it 10 parts of water with 1 part of tea, and now you've got a fabulous fertilizer you can pour into all your houseplants. I love it. I use it all the time on my plants. So again, your bin shouldn't have an odor to it. I know people who have kept them under your sink and nobody can tell. I keep mine in my basement. I've had people over in my basement and they had no idea that it was down there. So if you'd like to become more involved with the Conservation Foundation, there are several different ways that you can do that. You can become a member. We also have our Conservation at Home program, where you give us a call and one of us will come out and we can walk around your yard with you and we can make recommendations on native plants or rain barrels or pollinator gardens, all kinds of different things like that. And there's no charge for that. So you just give us a call and we come out. If you already have a yard full of native plants and you're doing something with your stormwater, through our certification program, you get a cute little sign that you can put up in your yard that tells your neighbors that, hey, I know what I'm doing. You can also check out our Conservation Online webinar series. And through that series, again, I've got a whole bunch of different webinars on there on a broad variety of topics. This week's webinar, we had a live raptor demonstration. So they brought out an owl, a falcon, a little kestrel, and a red-tailed hawk. And we talked all about the birds and their conservation. I've also done a whole bunch of them on native plants, pollinator gardens, things like that. You can also come visit our McDonald farm in Naperville or our Dixon Merst farm in Montgomery. Our McDonald farm is a working farm. So there are 60 acres there that are currently being farmed, or I'm sorry, 49 of the 60-acre property are currently being farmed as an organic farm. And that farm, we operate a CSA, or community supported agriculture, out of there, where you pay the farmer early in the season and you get to come pick up shares of the produce. We also have a little farm stand that we run there on Wednesdays. You can also follow us on social media. That's a great place to go to find out what our next webinar topic is going to be, how to register for our webinars, and what else we are up to, because we do a whole lot of stuff and it's kind of cool. So definitely make sure to follow us on social media as well. And this program went a little bit faster than I remember it going in the past, but that's all right, because that means then that we have plenty of time now for some questions.
All right, Jamie, I guess, yeah, we do have some questions here. So if you want to go ahead and I'll read them off. First one, do you recommend lasagna composting?
Oh yeah, so lasagna gardening is it's really more of a method of mulching than it is composting, if we're talking about the same thing here. So my understanding of lasagna gardening is where when you're preparing a bed to plant, you layer things in there such as compost, straw, cardboard, and you do several layers of these things all together and then finally plant in the top of that. And the idea there is all that stuff is breaking down and creating new, good, healthy soil where you're putting all of these plants, while also keeping all the weeds subdued. So yeah, lasagna gardening is a great way to do it. There's several websites that'll give you more of the specifics on exactly how to layer and how much of each thing to put on there. But if you're preparing a new bed, or you know, if you're trying to plant some new plants, it's really a great way to do it.
Okay. Next question, is the caffeine from the coffee grounds harmful for the soil? She also said, I heard runoff of caffeine into oceans is very harmful. So does that apply to soil as well?
You know, not that I know of. I've not encountered anything. As a matter of fact, I've heard coffee grounds are actually really good. I know, based on the amount of tea and coffee we go through in my house, my worms are very well caffeinated. And yeah, I have not heard any problems. And I think especially because you're not putting like fresh coffee beans in there, you're putting already brewed coffee. So the majority of the tannins and all of that has probably already come out. So the amount that you're putting in there, it's getting broken down. I really don't think it's going to be a problem.
Okay. Where can we buy tumbling composter?
So if you go to the Conservation Foundation's website and you look, and this is going to sound a little bit counterintuitive, but if you go under the section on rain barrels, you can order a rain barrel from our site. The same company also makes the stationary composters and the tumbling composters. So it's the same order form for the rain barrels. And so you go on there and you can order them. And they are, pre-COVID, I know they were delivering them. Now they may be shipping them instead. I'm not 100% certain how they're going on that at this very moment, but shipping is very inexpensive for them, like I said, because they were delivering most of them. I know with the rain barrels, it was like $5. So they can, or you can pick them up at our farm in Naperville as well. So if you're in the area and you wanted to go pick up one, you could place the order and then come to our farm to pick it up or have it delivered.
Okay, thank you. Now, next question. Do you give compost at any specific location from where we can pick up compost for our garden? Kind of answered that, I guess.
Yeah, we don't really sell compost or distribute compost from the Conservation Foundation. The compost that I make at home, I use in my own garden. And with our farm as well, I know they use a lot of compost. So I know they take in the leaves even from the city of Naperville. They bring their leaves out there and we compost them and use them on our farm. So we don't actually provide any compost, you know, for home use, but that's, it's pretty easy for you to do at home.
Okay, and then one last question I have here. I have a vermicompost. Is it okay to add pickles? Is there a risk of too much salt or acid?
Oh, that's a great question. I, ooh, I would really have to look that one up. My gut reaction is it's probably okay. I wouldn't dump the brine in there, but I think just the pickles themselves, if you had some maybe that had gone bad or whatever, I think just the pickles themselves would be okay. I wouldn't do it often, again, as you said, because of the salts in it, but I think it would, I think occasionally a few wouldn't hurt anything.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know about the salt, that it would be harmful.
Yeah, having too much salt is generally is not good for plants either.
Oh, okay. Just like
But
it's not good for humans either.
well, right, exactly. You know, if you go back in history, I believe, I want to say it was the Romans or maybe the Greeks. Whenever they would conquer somebody, you would hear about them burning and salting the fields. And what they would do is they would burn all the crops down, and then they would just apply massive amounts of salts to the soil, and it would kill off all the plants.
Okay. All right, we
So
did have another question pop up. Where
uh-huh.
do you buy the worms?
That's a good question. So most bait shops, if you have a bait shop near you, will sell red wigglers. And you want, like I said, you want to make sure you get red wigglers and not night crawlers. But most bait shops will sell them. If you can't find them locally in a bait shop, you can actually buy them online, and they will ship them in a cooled bin, you know, and you just basically buy them by the pound.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So it looks like there's no other questions. Anyone? We have some time if you'd like to ask anything else from Jamie.
And again, I'm sorry this went by so fast. When I tried it before, it was a little bit longer. I must have talked faster than I usually do.
I mean, it was a great presentation. Thank you again for that. Hopefully we
Absolutely.
answered a lot of questions for everyone who's viewing right now. If you do want a recording, just send me an email and I will share the link for the recording.
Great. And again, all of my past webinars are on our YouTube channel, including I have done this one as part of my webinar series as well. So you can go back and check it out there on our YouTube channel as well, along with all of our other webinars on there. So I appreciate everybody attending tonight. Thank you so much also to the library for hosting me. I hope everyone had a chance to learn a little bit there.
You know what? Something else. Let's see. Oh, it was just a thank you. Great, very useful information someone just put in. All right. Thank you, everyone. And just enjoy your evening. Stay safe and be well.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Good night.